for all the wrong reasons. The gymnasium pulsed, music, laughter, shouting. It was supposed to be a night of joy, a night where memories were made and friendships were celebrated. The decorations were vibrant, the lights twinkling like stars, and the air was filled with the scent of flowers and cologne. But beneath the surface something sinister lurked. It should have felt exciting. It didn't. The shadows seemed to stretch and twist, creating shapes that played tricks on the mind. The laughter that echoed off the walls felt hollow, almost as if it was mocking us. The gym, usually a place of energy and life, felt like a trap. A cold dread crept up my spine. The decorations swayed. They moved as if they were alive, whispering secrets that only they knew. The streamers fluttered like ghostly fingers and the balloons bobbed ominously. It was as if the very air was charged with a malevolent energy. They seemed to whisper, "Leave now, while you still can." The words were not audible, but they were felt deep within. It was a warning, a plea from the inanimate objects that had somehow gained a voice. The sense of foreboding was palpable, and it was growing stronger with each passing second. This was supposed to be the best night of our lives. We had looked forward to it for months, planned every detail, and dreamed of the perfect evening. The dresses, the suits, the dates, the dances, it was all meant to be magical. But the magic had turned dark, and the dream was becoming a nightmare. But something felt terribly, terribly wrong. The music stopped. It was as if the very heart of the night had been ripped out. The silence that followed was deafening, a void that swallowed all the joy and left only fear. The lights flickered, casting eerie shadows that danced on the walls. A hush fell over the crowd. The laughter died, the conversation ceased, and all eyes turned towards the stage. The atmosphere was thick with tension, and the air seemed to crackle with anticipation. It was as if everyone was holding their breath, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Principal Thompson stepped onto the stage. His face was pale. He looked like a man who had seen something that defied explanation, something that had shaken him to his core. His hands trembled as he gripped the microphone, and his eyes were wide with fear. He looked like he had seen a ghost. Maybe he had. In this town you never knew. There were stories, whispers of things that went bump in the night, of shadows that moved on their own, and of secrets buried deep. The principal's appearance only added to the growing sense of dread. Maybe he had. In this town you never knew. The town had a history, a dark past that was often spoken of in hushed tones. There were legends of hauntings, of spirits that roamed the streets, and of curses that lingered. It was a place where the line between reality and the supernatural was often blurred. "Students," he began, his voice trembling, "there's been an incident." The words hung in the air, heavy and foreboding. The crowd shifted uneasily, whispers spreading like wildfire. What kind of incident? What could have happened to cause such fear in the principal's eyes? His eyes darted around nervously. He seemed to be searching for something, or someone. The fear in his eyes was contagious, spreading through the crowd like a virus. The students looked at each other, confusion and fear mirrored in their expressions. Whatever it was, he didn't want to say it out loud. It was as if speaking the words would make them real, would bring the horror into the light. He swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing, and took a deep breath. The tension was unbearable, the silence oppressive. But we were about to find out. The truth was lurking just beneath the surface, waiting to be revealed. The air was thick with anticipation, and the sense of impending doom was almost suffocating. It was a moment that would be etched into our memories forever. We were about to find out in the worst way possible. The revelation would shatter the illusion of safety, would bring the darkness into the light. It was a night that would change everything, a night that we would never forget. A night to remember, for all the wrong reasons. It all started as these things often do, with a disappearance. A seemingly ordinary night turned into a mystery that would haunt the town for years to come. Jessica, our valedictorian, vanished. Gone. She was the pride of our school, always excelling in her studies and extracurricular activities. Her future was bright, and she was set to attend a prestigious university. One minute she was laughing with her friends, the next she was gone, vanished into thin air. It was prom night, a night meant for celebration and joy, but it quickly turned into a nightmare. Her friends said she went to freshen up. They remembered her excusing herself with a smile, saying she would be right back, but she never made it back. Minutes turned into hours, and worry set in. The search began, but there was no trace of her. Some whispered about the old legend, the story that had been passed down through generations of students, a tale that was often dismissed as mere superstition. The one about the ghost that haunted the school. A ghostly figure that roamed the halls, searching for something or someone. They said it was the spirit of a student who died on prom night decades ago. A tragic accident that left a mark on the school, a story that was never fully explained. They said she was looking for a prom king. A soul to accompany her in the afterlife, to complete the dance she never got to finish, and she wasn't leaving until she found one. The legend had always been a source of fear and fascination, but now, with Jessica's disappearance, it felt all too real. The school was never the same after that night, and the mystery of the vanishing valedictorian remains unsolved to this day. The whispers started subtly, quiet murmurs during the king and queen announcements. Then they grew louder, more insistent. They seemed to be coming from the auditorium, the abandoned auditorium. A group of us, our nerves already frayed, decided to investigate. Big mistake. As we approached the heavy velvet curtain, the whispers became words, angry words, threatening words. We pulled back the curtain. The auditorium was empty, except for a single flickering light, and the feeling that we were not alone. The music was deafening, trying to drown out the fear that was quickly spreading through the crowd. That's when I saw it. Blood. A single drop of blood on the dance floor. Then another, and another. They seemed to be coming from the ceiling. We all looked up at the same time. There, clinging to the rafters, was a figure. Its eyes glowed red in the darkness, and it was smiling, a slow, cruel smile that sent shivers down our spines. Section 5. The glowing eyes in the woods. Some of us, desperate to escape the horror unfolding inside, fled outside. We ran into the woods. Bad idea. The woods surrounding our school were always creepy. Tonight they were downright hostile. The trees seemed to reach out for us, their branches like skeletal fingers, in the eyes, glowing eyes, watching us from the darkness. We didn't know what they belonged to, but we knew they meant us harm. Section 6. The Haunted House on Lover's Lane. This place has been the subject of countless ghost stories and urban legends. They say Lover's Lane is haunted by the ghost of a young couple who died there on prom night, their love story ending in tragedy. Their car careened off the road and into the river, sealing their fate forever. The legend says that on foggy nights you can still hear their desperate cries for help. Tonight, we were determined to avoid it. We had heard the stories, but curiosity got the better of us. But our options were running out. The fog was getting thicker, and the only way out was through Lover's Lane. As we drove down the fog-shrouded lane, the atmosphere grew increasingly eerie. The trees seemed to close in on us, their branches like skeletal fingers reaching out. We felt a cold presence in the car with us. The temperature dropped suddenly, making us shiver despite the heater being on full blast. The radio started to crackle, emitting a static noise that sent chills down our spines. It was as if the spirits were trying to communicate with us. And then we saw her. A figure appeared out of the mist, almost ethereal in its presence. The ghostly figure of a young woman in a white dress, her eyes filled with sorrow and longing. She stood in the middle of the road, her form translucent yet unmistakably real. We couldn't believe our eyes. Was this the spirit of the young woman from the legend? We had to find out. We slowly approached, our hearts pounding in our chests. The closer we got, the more palpable her sadness became. It was as if she was reliving her final moments, trapped in an endless loop of despair. Just as we were about to reach her, she vanished into thin air, leaving us in stunned silence. The air around us felt heavy, as if the weight of her sorrow had enveloped us. We sat there, trying to process what we had just witnessed. Was it a figment of our imagination, or had we truly encountered the ghost of Lover's Lane? One thing was certain, we would never forget this night. As we drove away, the fog began to lift, and the oppressive atmosphere started to dissipate. But the memory of that ghostly encounter would stay with us forever, a chilling reminder of the haunted house on Lover's Lane. Section 7. Mirror, mirror, on the wall. Back inside, the few of us who remained huddled together, terrified. The bathrooms were said to be haunted, but we had to try to call for help. As I looked into the mirror, I saw her, standing behind me. Her eyes were empty sockets, her dress was soaked in blood, and she was reaching for me. Section 8. The ghostly slow dance. The music started up again, a slow song. I looked around for someone, anyone, but I was alone. Then I saw her. Jessica. She was standing in the middle of the dance floor. Her face was pale, her eyes hollow. She held out her hand to me. "Dance with me," she whispered. Her voice was like the wind, cold and ethereal. I wanted to run, but my feet were rooted to the spot. I was trapped. Section 9, don't go into the basement. The basement was always locked, forbidden. Legend had it that it was sealed after a terrible fire years ago. But now the door was slightly ajar. We could hear noises coming from within. Sobs, scratches, whispers. We knew we shouldn't. But curiosity and desperation got the better of us. We pushed open the door and stepped inside. The air was thick with the smell of decay. The darkness was absolute, and we were not alone. Section 10, trapped in the school. The exits were all locked, barred. We were trapped. The school, once a place of learning, was now our prison. A prison haunted by something ancient and evil, something that fed on our fear. We could hear it moving through the halls. Slowly, deliberately, hunting us, one by one. There was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. Section 11, a night of terror. The sun rose, casting a pale light on the horrors of the night. The gymnasium was silent, empty, except for the bloodstains on the dance floor, and the memories that would haunt us forever. Prom night, a night that was supposed to be magical. Instead, it became a night of terror, a night we would never forget, a night that proved some legends are all too real.